Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Alex. Unfortunately, our fearless leader Sean cannot be here tonight, so it's just me. Stick around, we got a lot to talk about. The elephant in the room, we'll get to it. Trust me, it'll be our main topic of conversation, plus a number of other things. But before we go any further, I would like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they are the AHL minor league affiliate of your Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is underway. The Ice Hogs have hit the ice. Go get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, and some tickets. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. All right. So, we have quite a bit to cover over multiple teams, but we all know why you're listening. The main reason you're here. Let's just lay it down right now. The season feels over for the Bears. That loss against the Chargers was a nail in the coffin. And I know what you're thinking. It's not even November yet. There's a long way to go. Green Bay is 7-1. The Vikings are 6-2. And the other teams in the wild card race are well ahead of you, and you are sub 500. You are currently the 12 seed. You would need to go not only on a crazy run, but for other teams to start falling apart. I mean, it's technically possible, but the chances are minute. This was a game for the Bears to stay alive in the race. They were not in the best position, but if you would have won that game against the Chargers at home, you would have been 4-3. You would have been one loss behind the Vikings. You were probably never going to catch Green Bay, but you still would have been in a playoff race. And in the NFL, we all know that all you need to do is just get in. So the Bears had a chance to give themselves a chance to stay in the playoff race, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It ended in gut-wrenching fashion, but you know what? The missed Pinheiro field goal from 41 yards isn't even nearly the most talked about topic from that game, which, may seem surprising because we all saw how last year ended, but everybody who watched that game knew that it should not have come down to that, not even close. That should have been a blowout win for the Bears. I mean, these numbers are really quite staggering, and you can go over who you blame over and over again, but it's got to be shared. It's got to be shared between the quarterback, the coaching, and pretty much the whole offense. 26 first downs they had. The Chargers had 11, and the Bears lost. 5 red zone trips, 16 points. That's 1 touchdown. They are only the second team this year with 5+ red zone trips and less than 17 points scored. 26 first downs to 11. And you lost. 5 trips to the red zone. And you scored less than 17 points. I mean, look, the Bears' running game was great to set up the red zone. Let's just say that. Montgomery did exactly what we have waited to see. 135 yards rushing and the 1 Bears touchdown, averaging 5 per carry. We saw him cut through holes, and we saw him bounce off players and gain extra yards. You saw some of those first downs he picked up. It was exactly as advertised when they drafted him. That was the David Montgomery the the Bears drafted. We saw that. And the Bears dominated time of possession too. They had some nice drives into the red zone. But then you got to the red zone, and instead of giving the ball to the guy who had been grounding, pounding, and finding holes and bouncing off guys all game, you had screen passes. You had just kind of half-assed plays. You saw some really bad throws into tight coverage. I don't understand the play calling at all in the red zone. I don't think anybody did. But the fact that at halftime, you were getting booed off the field because when you were winning. But that was after the clock. The clock was ticking away and the Bears were taking their sweet time after they had 2 sets of first downs in the red zone thanks to kind of ticky-tacky penalties, and you still couldn't take advantage of it? I mean, yeesh. A lot of that has to go on the head coach. There's no other way to put it. The play calling was so questionable. Now, you can't blame everything on the play calling. You got to look at the quarterback play. You got to look at the play of the offensive line. You can't really say the targets were a problem. They made their catches. I mean, that brings you to Mitch Trubisky. And look, he made a couple of nice throws. There's no doubt about it. He made a nice throw to Cohen. He made a nice throw to Gabriel. It wasn't a great throw to Robinson, but Robinson's good enough to make the catch. You know which catch I'm talking about downfield, but the interception was bad. The fumble was really bad. And if there's one play that should haunt the Bears for the rest of the season, it wasn't either of those. If this will tell you their quarterback situation right now, based on one play, it was that Taylor Gabriel miss. When Taylor Gabriel, wide open downfield, had the guy beat by multiple steps, linebacker wasn't going to catch him, wide open, a franchise quarterback completes that pass. And it was well overthrown. That is going to haunt the Bears for a while. That would have been a touchdown. That probably would have ended the game. The Bears would have won had that was completed. I mean, that has to be completed if you are a franchise quarterback. And it wasn't even close. It was way overthrown. Now, you look at Trubisky's numbers on the game. 23 for 35, 253 yards, no touchdown, 1 pick. I mean, that's a backup quarterback coming in. And, yeah, no touchdowns and interception. You don't want that either way. But if you had a backup playing in this game, you'd look at that and say, well, 250 yards, okay, made a few throws, but this is supposed to be your franchise quarterback. This is supposed to be the face of your franchise. And look, I've tried to be patient with him, and I've tried not to rip Trubisky too much, but you know what? It's just not working. It's simply not working. And I don't think you can sit around and wait anymore. He has been in the league since 2017, and I understand he was in a John Fox offense his first year where he didn't get to do much, but he had a full season last year and a number of games this year, and you know, you could only have so much patience, and I just think the clock has kind of ticks to zero. You know, nice guy, but you know, just the IQ isn't there on the field. The reads aren't there. The throws aren't always there. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And it stinks because I was really rooting hard for the guy. I really, really was. And I have nothing personal against him. It's just not going to work. And at this point of the season, you're sub 500, well behind a playoff spot with the deadline. And many people may be watching this when listening to this, I should say, when the deadline is over. But, I mean, I think right now as I talk, it's pretty clear that there's not going to be a trade for a quarterback. You don't have much to give up. Remember, you don't have any first-round picks because of the Mac deal, and you're not going to be able to really make a huge splash if you want to keep the few picks you have. Now, may they trade a player or two and maybe get a pick back? Sure, maybe they do. Maybe they trade a piece or two. But that's a selling move. My whole point is that you're not going to see them buy. They really shouldn't buy. They don't have what it takes to buy right now. I mean, you bring in Marcus Mariota, that's not going to do you anything. The Saints aren't going to give you Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, he's their ideal backup right now. Would I like Teddy Bridgewater as a backup on the Bears? You bet your butt I would, but he's not going to come in and save your season. And he's in a great spot right now. He's living the dream right now. He didn't lose a game as a backup quarterback. He had his team help him around him, and he's got a great chance to win a Super Bowl. A guy that some people thought wasn't going to play again, really. So, I mean, there's no point right now, in my opinion, to go after a quarterback in a season that's pretty much lost. I mean, God knows what the Eagles are going to do to this team. Who knows? So, I mean, Mitch Trubisky is still the guy for now. Matt Nagy made it clear. And we'll get to Matt Nagy in a minute again, but don't expect anything different. They're pretty much going to ride him out the rest of the year, unless there's an injury of some sort. If you're going to send a message by benching him for Chase Daniel, but you're going to move on from him anyway, if that's the plan, I don't know if it is or not. I mean, and talking about in the future, there's kind of no point to that as well. So, I mean, long story short, the Bears are probably just going to ride with Trubisky the rest of the way. That's it. Now, with Matt Nagy, I don't think anyone saw kind of a fall from grace this fast with Matt Nagy. He was so well liked by most of the fan base last year, and I loved him too. I think Matt Nagy is still a great guy in the locker room, a great guy to have a team around for morale, but the play calling hasn't gotten any better, and I'm sorry, you don't take a knee because you're afraid. That's what Mark Trestman did, and it ultimately bit them. Oh, but what if they fumble? What if they turn it over? Yeah, you could still miss a field goal. It wasn't a long field goal, but it wasn't a chip shot either. And you had a timeout. It's not like you were in a hurry. You have to try to get more yards there. You cannot play scared. If you are a team that is supposed to be in the playoffs, you do not play scared. Because you know what? If you play scared, that means you are not a playoff caliber team. That's the reality of it. Nagy coaching scared last year, you could argue it cost them that playoff game too. I mean, there's a lot of things about that game, and we're not going to go into that anymore. But, you got to get a few more yards there. At least try. And even if you don't, I'd rather they try than not. Now, obviously, if there was a fumble or a turnover, Matt Nagy would have been crucified for that too, and, maybe that's a little unfair, but it reminds you when Mark Trestman took the kick on second down and Gould missed it. I don't know if they would have gotten any more yards or not. Who knows? But to take a knee and let the clock go out, to me, that just was the wrong call. Among a few other calls offensively in the red zone. Now, you can't really blame the defense, but I'm going to say one thing about the defense. They had no pressure on Rivers. And since Hicks left with the injury, I mean, you saw the pressure on Kirk Cousins, but then after that, against Oakland, against the Saints, and against the Chargers, there was absolutely no pressure on the quarterback. Khalil Mack, I mean, he's, with no Hicks, he's getting double teamed, and nobody else is getting to the quarterback. And Rivers isn't mobile by any means. He's a statue out there. But he had time to throw. And, the Bears defense did an overall very good job of keeping the Chargers off the board. But the Chargers made the drives when they needed to. Now, the defense is one of the last things I would blame in this game. My whole point is, though, the pass rush that has been there all year last year just isn't there without Akeem Hicks. And I think it shows what a loss he is. But you'd still want it to be better. You'd want to see more Leonard Floyd. You'd want to see more Mack, even if he's getting double-teamed. Roy Robertson, Harris, Nick Williams. You want to see more pressure. You want to see more pressure. Again, not the reason they lost, but it's something I wanted to point out. I mean, this stinks. This is a game you truly played the better game, but you didn't execute when you were supposed to. If they just would have gotten one more touchdown, whether it was on that throw to Gabriel or the other times you were in the red zone, you would have won. You would have won easy. And would have kept your season alive. But that's not where we are right now. I want to believe Mitch Trubisky can be a guy. I want to. And I had tried for a while. But I just think that we're not going to see much better. I mean, one thing I can say about yesterday about the offense is, yeah, I got sacked a few times, and the offensive line still struggled at times, but I did feel like it was a bit better than weeks past. And, you know, not having an offensive line, that's tough for Mitch. It really is. But when you're not seeing the fundamentals be executed, the throws that should be made aren't being made, and just the reads not being there, it's really hard to have patience when it's just not developing the way you thought. Even with some of the promise he showed last year, you're seeing a regression in some areas, and you're not seeing the progression in other areas. I mean, that's just the way it looks right now. I feel bad for the guy, but when it's not working, it's not working. And I really don't know where the Bears go next year. I really don't. You don't have a first-round pick as of right now. I mean, if there's a trade and something changes by the time you listen to this show, then, you know, maybe the situation will be different. But, you know, as of right now, recording tonight on Monday, there's just not an easy answer. There really is not an easy answer. It stinks. This is one of the biggest letdowns, I think, in a while when it comes to the Bears season. All the expectations were there. And, you know, where will they finish? I don't know. I mean, right now, I see maybe 6-10 or 7-9. You got a lot of tough games on your schedule. You'll probably squeak one out against the Giants. They're not very good. Maybe you beat the Lions once. A lot of tough games, though. Got to play the Rams. Got to play the Eagles. Got to play Green Bay and Green Bay. Cowboys, that might be a toss-up. Got to play the Chiefs when Pat Mahomes comes back. But, I mean, at this point, it's not like you can quote-unquote tank. They're too talented to tank. That's the other frustrating thing is, you know, they're not the worst team by any means in the NFL. They are good enough to win games, clearly. But, you know, one thing goes wrong, one mistake, one missed call, one missed throw, one missed tackle, and then that's the Bears. As Tom Brenneman said a few years ago, a team of almosts. You lose so many close games the past few years. Gut-wrenchingly close games. They've only been blown out under Matt Nagy once. So it does show you that the team is competing, but they are not the team that we thought they were going to be. And that was a Super Bowl contender. And, you know, a lot of it is the offense and the quarterback. And you see this defense playing very well throughout much of the season, going to waste, unfortunately. It stinks. And I really don't have anything else to say. even when you do a lot of good and you still find a way to lose. 26 first downs, just 26-11. 5 trips to the red zone. I don't know what else to say. So I kind of want to move on. Let's go to the Blackhawks. They're not doing so hot either. You beat a really bad LA team. I mean, maybe that was a get-right game right there, but you got killed in Carolina. You lost some really frustrating games on that homestand. You had the game against Vegas. You should have won that. You had the game against the Jets really early. The game I was talking about a few weeks ago. You really could have won that. You had a few other losses that were by 1 goal that could have gone either way. The offense really hasn't been there. I mean, they scored 5 goals against the Kings, but before that, they got shut out, and then they scored 1 goal. I think they had 2 goals in over 6 periods at one point. The lines are very questionable by Colleton. At least you saw Strome and DeBrincat together. I mean, that clearly worked. I mean, Strome almost had a hat trick. He had 2 goals. Yeah, DeBrincat had a couple of points. That has to stay. But I think what's also frustrating about the Blackhawks is that you are not seeing Kane or Tays do much. They've been kind of MIA. Each of them only have a goal or 2. I know Kane's got more than 1, obviously, but they're just not scoring. And, it's still early. They can heat up. But, they have not really been a presence as they usually are. I mean, probably the best player on this team is Brandon Saad. That guy's been all over the place. And that guy could easily have 4 or 5 more goals. I mean, I feel like I say that every year. Every year, he could easily have 5 more goals. But, I mean, he has been all over the place. He has been a great two-way player. I can't say anything else about him. He's just been really good. I mean, Robin Lehner, for the most part, has been pretty good. And I think as we go along, you're going to see him become the official number 1 goaltender. I mean, Corey Crawford, one of my absolute favorite Blackhawks of my lifetime. I don't want to say he's bad because, the defense around him isn't always great, but I think it's pretty clear he's not the same Corey Crawford he once was, due to age and injuries. But, unfortunately, that was kind of expected. I think Robin Lehner has shown you enough that he can do what he's asked to do and play like a number 1, because when they got Robin Lehner, the goal really was to have a 2-headed monster in goaltender. But you see Robin Lehner play, and he's had some really good games. Yeah, there have been times where the rebounds are a little too bouncy for my liking, but overall, he's making the stops, he's getting the job done, and he's made some incredible saves in big moments. So you gotta like that. There's a long way to go in this hockey season. I can't really say that they're, going into the season, I actually thought they were going to be a playoff team. Right now, I really don't know if they're going to be. I just hope that they can improve a little bit more, if they can finally find the chemistry to get together, keep Strome and DeBrincat together. They just made a trade. They sent Perlini, who really wasn't getting much time anyway, to the Red Wings. So a little minor move there, but it seemed pretty inevitable that Perlini was not going to be on the team much longer. And you got to wonder, they going to see more healthy scratches for Brent Seabrook going forward? I don't know. I mean, it's really hard to just keep benching a guy who's one of your highest paid players, but, the unfortunate fact of the matter is, Seabrook is way past his prime. Way past it. So you're going to have to make some decisions going forward. Maybe go based on matchup. Maybe you sit him every few games. I don't know. You're obviously not going to just cut him because he's making all that money. You're going to have to implement him somehow at some point. But we'll see. You know, he was a healthy scratch for only the second time in his career, and both would have been within the past, season, I think. Because, unfortunately, the decline has happened over the past several seasons. But they got a road trip coming up. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. I don't know about them. I go back and forth. They have a lot of talent on paper, and they have some kids like Adam Boqvist coming up. And you get him in the mix, things can, maybe change a little bit on defense. You kind of like what you see from Calvin DeHaan. He's been playing solid hockey. Slater Cuckoo, who I know a lot of people are down on, he had a pretty nice game the other night. And if you could get just solid play from him, obviously that'd be ideal. You're not going to get the Duncan Keith you once got, but if he could at least give you something. This defense is never going to be good. You just want to see it better. You just want it to be better. And you want the offense to be better too. I mean, I didn't think the offense was really going to be a problem early on. I don't think really many people did, but unfortunately it has been. So you're going to want to find the right chemistry, the right consistency, and I think an argument is made that Colliton doesn't always make the right line combinations. But, maybe we'll adjust as time goes on. We'll see. Part of me is not even sure Colliton's going to last much longer. There's a lot of cracks showing, and depending on what the Blackhawks do over these next few weeks, I don't know. I mean, his seat seems to be getting pretty warm, at least among the fans. I mean, they looked miserable in Carolina. I know Carolina's good, but yeesh. People will bring up Coach Quenneville again, and I'll say it again. Coach Quenneville's time here was up. It was over. It was done. You gotta let go of Coach Quenneville. His time was up after 2017 when they were manhandled in the playoffs. Coach Q will be a legend in Chicago forever, and until another coach wins 3 or more Stanley Cups, he's going to be the best coach that they've ever had. But people have to move on that. I guarantee you this team would not be any better with Coach Q at the helm. It was his time to move on, and it sucks to see his tenure end that way, but that's sometimes how it goes. Let's switch gears again here, and let's talk about a team that we have not talked about in a very long time. The Bulls. The Bulls started their season. Pretty frustrating, bad loss to the Charlotte Hornets. A Charlotte Hornets team that, on paper, you scratch your head and go, who? To half the players. At least I do anyway. Maybe I just don't pay enough attention. But they had a very nice win in Memphis. And then a pretty crappy loss at home. And then they're playing in New York. With the Bulls, I feel like there's a different energy this year. A little bit more optimistic. I mean, nothing overly optimistic, but at least there's an interest among the fans, including myself. Yeah, I was so disconnected from the Bulls the past 2 years. It felt like there was no point in watching them. And I watch them now thinking, look, I know this team isn't going to win a championship, and I think them even making the playoffs may be a bit of a stretch, but at least there is some interest there to watch them. Look, the sample size is very small, but I am really liking Kobe White. And that kid's a baller. You saw what he did in Memphis the other night. Really impressive stuff. Very quick, very athletic. Can make some really nice shots. Really enjoyed watching him play so far. And, obviously I have Lauri Markkanen, who's looking like a very solid scorer. Now, we're still kind of waiting for the three-point shooting to get better, but you're seeing some very good things from him. You're seeing Zach LaVine. You rely on him really on being your best shooter at this point. And Wendell Carter Jr., he's having a pretty good game against New York. You're just kind of waiting for him to get consistently going. he had a pretty rough game against the Toronto Raptors at home the other night, Saturday night. Is that injury still bothering him? Yeah, it could be. But, you saw him, I don't know how you say it. I don't want to say soft, but it just didn't look like he was 100% there. That something was still kind of missing with him. He wasn't putting away the shots you wanted him to put away, and I mean, under the basket and whatnot. You don't want him shooting threes. But if he can have a few good games in a row and he could kind of build his confidence back after being injured, then that can help carry the Bulls a bit further. Because Carter Jr. is one of really the centerpieces of this rebuild. I mean, you have the veterans like Thaddeus Young out there, and you pretty much know what you have in a guy like Thaddeus Young, but you're watching this team right now to really get a sense of what you have, because Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., Zach LaVine, they really haven't played much all together at the same time. They've battled so many injuries. You're really trying to wait and see what they look like together. And you do see the flashes of the good. You do. Like I just said, Kobe White's a baller, very athletic. Lauri Markkanen, very talented shooter. Zach LaVine, very talented scorer. Wendell Carter Jr., if he can do what he can do, then, that's another big piece right there. I don't know really how many games this Bulls team can win. I could see them winning 30. I could see them winning 40. It may depend on how healthy they are. It may depend on how some of these guys continue to develop and build on their careers. But, again, at least there are some interesting guys on this team, guys that you watch and are at least entertained watching. There's guys like Lauri Markkanen who you've had for a while, but you're waiting to see him take the next step. And there's guys like Kobe White. He's a fresh breath of air. You haven't had really a point guard of any substance in a while. So having him now, it gives you a reason to be a bit more optimistic about the point guard position on this team. Even if he is coming off the bench, as he develops more, we'll see what his role kind of evolves to. But I think he's in a great spot right now where he can show off what he has and, be a guy that you can use in certain situations. I think that Boylen may implement him more and more in more situations as time may go on. We'll see. Again, it's a very small sample size, but you just want the next step here. And look, I understand. Going for an 8th seed is one of the least ideal things. Not only in NBA, but all of sports. And when I mean all of sports, I don't mean like 8 seeds in general, like the last seed in football or the last seed in hockey, because anyone can win in those. But just in sports in general, being the 8th seed in the NBA is not really the position you'd like to be in, just because you're not going to get a good draft pick and you're not good enough to contend for a title, so you're just kind of stuck in the middle. But, this Bulls core has been, well, it's not been what you've wanted because they haven't stayed healthy. They haven't been able to land a superstar. But you want to see some sort of progression here. It's a very weird situation to be in. It really is. You want to see improvement, but you also understand that even with improvement, you're still far from a championship. I think just the fan in me wants to see a competitive team again. Whatever that is. I just want to see a competitive team. I want a reason to invest in the Bulls. And look, there are a lot of flaws on this team right now. The 3-point shooting is still very, very bad. I think the defense has gotten a little better, a little tighter, but it's still not great. You have some poor decision-making. But I can tell you, I think if they stay healthy, we will definitely see a lot of improvements. And that's really, really the point of this season, is to see improvements. So we'll see as time goes along. Obviously, there's going to be more to talk about the Bulls as more games are played, more than just a few. So we'll get back on that, I'm sure, in future shows. We'll hopefully have Big Dave back on the show, our good friend and Bulls expert. He's on NBC Sports Chicago, knows everything Bulls, NBA, so we'll hopefully have him on the show. He'll be able to tell us a lot more because Sean and I will be the first ones to admit we are not the biggest NBA experts. I mean, yeah, we watch basketball, we watch the Bulls, but Dave is really, really smart when it comes to NBA basketball, especially the Bulls. Very, very intelligent mind, very observant, so we'll definitely have him on again. The last thing I want to talk about, baseball. Today, Monday, the Cubs introduced David Ross as their next manager. He was officially putting on the uniform this afternoon, and he made his first speech as manager. And, look, we haven't done a show since he was officially named the manager. We were talking about who could possibly fill his place. We brought up Joe Espada. We brought up Joe Girardi, who none of us really wanted. We talked about a few outside guys like Carlos Beltran, who probably didn't want to come here regardless. I think he was gunning for a certain job. But, we had talked about a number of guys, but it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that David Ross was, in a way, a manager in the making. And for anybody to take that job from David Ross would have really, really had to wow Epstein. And I think just part of the process of bringing in other guys was just picking their brain a little bit. I think that's just part of the process. So you had Joe Girardi come in, you had Joe Espada come in for 2 interviews, and maybe they made a few other interviews we don't know about. But David Ross was clearly the favorite throughout. Even at times when it looked like Joe Espada may be the favorite, it sounds like it was always David Ross, and David Ross ultimately won the job. Look, I get that there are mixed feelings. I know why there are a lot of mixed feelings, and I'm sure there are reasons you can see for and against. For, he's got a good relationship with the players. Against, he's got a good relationship with the players, if you know what I mean. Against, he doesn't have any experience. For, he's proven what a smart baseball mind he is. I think you can outweigh the goods and the bads, and you can say, look, there are a number of goods here, but I'm not going to promise you he's going to be a good manager. I also can't declare that he's going to be a bad one. I think they have to give him a chance. The fans have to give him a chance. It could be a great hire. It could be a terrible hire. It could be a meh hire. The truth of the matter is we have no idea. I cannot tell you what kind of game manager he's going to be. How is he going to set lineups? How is he going to make pitching changes? How is he going to manage the bullpen? How is he going to put the starting rotation together? I don't know. What I can tell you is, and this is something that I have said for a while, I can tell you that he is going to command respect in the locker room. I am very confident about that. There's this whole notion, this whole idea, this whole fear that David Ross is just this fun, cuddly frat bro grandpa who's fun and happy and cheerful and yada yada. Listen, he did not gain the respect of guys like John Lester, John Lackey, and other veterans by being fun-loving grandpa. He was respected for a reason. You don't earn that respect by being fun grandpa. You earn the respect by being a leader, by not being afraid of getting into someone's face, by not being afraid of being a mentor first and a friend second. And the fact that you have heard so many good things from numbers of ball players from him, and the fact that Epstein and Hoyer took him under his wing. He wasn't just doing ESPN, he was working with the front office. And I really believe that that was a process to kind of build him into this position. I think the Cubs were thinking about Joe Ross taking Madden's spot when Madden would leave much longer than you think. Again, will it work out? I don't know, but I think this was in the works for a while. You know that David Ross and the front office are going to be on the same page. I know people are afraid it's going to be like a puppet, but we live in a day and age where baseball has their front office kind of live through the manager. Or I should say, I don't really know the best way to put it, but what I'm saying is the manager is basically a product of the front office. And that they have control through the manager, and you don't see kind of the Billy Bean, Art Howe, clash that you saw in the movie Moneyball. You know, things are a little different now. And you look at all the managers around baseball and these successful teams. Look at the Yankees, Aaron Boone. Look at Alex Cora, the Astros. Look at Craig Counsell, the Brewers. These weren't older guys with years of experience. That's not the case at all. Quite different. We're just in a new era where experience isn't everything. Being on the same page of the front office and having similar analytical minds, which are much more advanced, that's just kind of how baseball is working right now. And this could pay off nicely. David Ross having those qualities. But we're just going to have to wait and see. And as time goes on in this offseason, you're just going to have to sit there and realize that whether it's David Ross or not, the real factor is the front office improving the team itself. You need a better bench. You need a better bullpen. You're probably going to need a reliable starter or two. There's a lot of work on this team to be done. And David Ross alone does not come in and act as a Band-Aid to all those holes. There's a lot of holes to patch up. So it's going to take some work. Other than just hiring David Ross. This was the first small step in a very, very long retooling process this winter. And we will see how it goes. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Want to thank everybody for listening. I know it's hard listening to just one guy talk, and sometimes it's kind of hard as a guy just talking with himself. But, I like doing it every now and then. And we'll have Sean back next week, so the crew will be back together. So hang with us there. Until next week, I'm Alex. Thank you for listening. And as always, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.